Tuesday, June 16, 2020, City of Somerton Regular Council Meeting. It's 7:18 p.m. Councilman Gonzalez, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Gerardo Anaya. Present. Vice Mayor Marta Garcia. Present. Councilmember Miguel Villalpando.
Present.
Councilmember Carlos Gonzalez. Present. Councilmember Luis Galindo.
Present.
Councilmember Jesus. Present. And Councilmember Juan Castillo.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you, council members. We have a combination of some virtual and some in the building. And when they're in the building, we're wearing a mask, and we encourage the other public to wear a mask when they're outside in public. We only have one grocery store, one post office, and we gotta take care of each other. Understand the governor's mandate does not allow cities to implement that. We're asking the governor to allow cities to make those decisions, being that Somerton, we're a hotspot here in the state, not just in Yuma County. And I'm sure by now, a lot of us know people have been impacted, people that are sick, family members, people that have died, and so as a community, it's our responsibility to take care of each other. And just want to tell everybody that the council is working hard to let our city take measures into our own hands, so hopefully that goes through. Moving on, out to the public. Anybody from the public wishing to address council? Nobody from the public? Okay. Moving on to consent agenda, there are 3 items. Item number 1, approval of May 5th, 2020 work session and regular council meeting minutes. Check register for the month of May 2020. Item number 3, IGA between the City of Somerton, Somerton School District for school resource officer services provided to Somerton Middle School for the year 2020-2021. The council member wishes to remove an item from the agenda. Is there a motion? Second. So motion by Vice Mayor Garcia, second by Councilman Roldan. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We have one item and public hearing. Item number 1, public hearing pursuant to ARS section 41563.01 relating to alternative expenditure limitation, home rule option regarding the proposed extension of the alternative expenditure limitation for City of Somerton. There are motions to go into public hearing, to open public hearing. So, Mayor. There's a motion by Councilman Gonzalez.
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Garcia. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. Zarina Gallegos, Finance Director. I'm here to request that you take this item into consideration. The expenditure limitation is very, very important because it allows us to extend the limited amount that we must abide by. If we don't, if the alternative expenditure limitation isn't approved, As you're aware, our current budget for 2021, the preliminary budget is $26 million. 26 million, a couple $100,000. And if we were not to pass the expenditure limitation, we would be limited to $13 million. We would not be able to expend the full extent of our budget if this item is not approved by the voters. So it's very, very important. With that, I will answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
So, Mayor and Council, this is
Council.
the second of 2 mandatory hearings. We can open it for comments from the public, and later on the agenda, you will have a proposed resolution that allows us to take this item to the voters.
Any comments, questions? No?
Are we
Thank you,
doing
sir.
anything to inform the community about it? Because we did that 4 years ago. I remember we went to the churches and we passed flyers and information on the water bill.
That is correct, sir. We are putting together pamphlets for the election in November. So we will be putting those together and sending those out.
Okay, thank you.
We, and I'm sure there's rules against it, but just stating the facts, like having a video on our website, what home rule is, not advocating one way or the other, but just stating that this allows us to spend so-and-so, or maybe we could talk to SNT and just stating the facts, not one way or the other, but just because it's important. And
Yes.
and when you see this on the ballot, it's like, oh, the city wants to spend more money. They don't want to have to. But when you really point out what it is, what it does, then not passing this would most likely, prevent us from having those recreation, everything. It just will be a bare bones operation. So it's important that we put it out there, because many times if you understand what it is, then you most likely vote. But if it's not, you just see, oh, the city doesn't have a limit on what they spend. They're going to be spending all our tax money. So hopefully we find something to be creative with, like Councilman Galindo said. Last year we went to churches, we went to the Rotary Club, we went to the city officials. So hopefully now with our footprint of having more access to people through social media.
I believe there are rules and regulations that we have to follow, and the pamphlet is very specific the way that we can put it together. However, I also believe that we are able to engage the public in just the facts. So if we wanted to put those the pamphlet online, I'm not sure that there is any limitation on that. Mr. Lozano, are you aware of any limitations for putting these items out there?
In years past, we've there's been community interest in forming some sort of a group in favor of passing the expenditure limitation. Vote yes on the limitation or whatever. And so I think that's the same type of idea that we're going to be focusing on, as well as maybe using our consulting, Jerry Cabrera. He was pretty active in one of our last bond elections for some new classrooms at the school district. So that there's a lot of community interest. I think we can form a group that's going to go out and do some promotion. Obviously, the city can't spend any money promoting any side one way or the other, but besides that, so let's look at that.
So we could look to put out a video just putting the facts of what home rule means.
As long as we don't
make our own decisions.
As long as we don't take a position either or, I think the city can spend.
We can't be taking.
Okay.
There's a reality of what the cuts would be if this doesn't happen.
Correct. Okay.
Is there a motion to exit, to close public hearings? So moved. The motion by Councilman Roldan. Second by Vice Mayor Garcia. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item number 1,
Would it be a, oh, it is.
new business. Discussion and possible action to approve resolution number 2020-013, resolution of Mayor and City Council, City of Somerton, Arizona, proposing an extension of the alternative expenditure limitation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So, we just closed the public hearing on the alternative expenditure limitation, also known as home rule. In front of you is the proposed resolution that would take this, that'll officially hand this item over to the voters here in the city of Somerton for adoption. The last expenditure limitation election happened in November of 2016 and was successful. And we're going to ask council and all those who are running for office this year also to perhaps spread the word to pass this home rule.
Any questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve resolution number 2020-013? A motion by Vice Mayor Garcia, second by Councilman Roldan. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Item number 2, request to submit the required environmental review records and ECO certifying officer designation form for all CDBG grants to the Arizona Department of Housing.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. For this item, we do have Ms. Galindo, who is our grant consultant, and to answer any questions.
Are you related to Councilman Galindo?
Actually, we're not. Good evening.
From Sahuaripa, no?
Oh, yeah, I think we're all from over there, but well, my parents are anyway. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Yolanda Galindo, CDBG consultant for the city of Somerton. This is a standard form for all CDBG environmental reviews. Every time you have a new city manager, an interim city manager, we need to do a new form authorizing the individual to sign any environmental review or any Arizona Department of Housing documents.
Any questions? Comments? Persons? 2 meetings in a row that you haven't had any questions.
That's pretty good. I'm on a roll.
So, is there a motion?
Yes, the suggested action is to designate myself, Jorge Lozano, as the certifying officer for the city of Somerton.
Is there a motion to designate Mr. Lozano as the certifying officer for the city of Somerton? So moved, Mayor. There's a motion by Councilman Gonzalez, second by Councilman Roldan. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, cousin.
Oh, yeah.
Item number 3, discussion and possible action to approve a demonstration installation of cameras throughout the city by Flock Safety.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, Chief of Police Araceli Juarez. I'd like to introduce for this item Mr. Craig Gardner.
Great to meet you guys.
So,
Good. Let's try and figure out where the presentation is.
He said it's down, going down.
Oh, down. Okay, perfect. So I'm from Flock Safety. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of information about where we came from and what it is we do. So we make license plate reading scanners. Essentially, we got started when here we go. We got started when our founder had a mission of eliminating nonviolent crime. He had a Ring camera at a next door neighbor's house catch a vehicle that was in action of a crime. It was breaking into the home. What ended up happening is they were not able to catch a person due to not having a license plate. So he went on a mission to essentially discover how to reinvent license plate readers as they are today. Since then, we've grown pretty rapidly, working with a lot of private communities. We work mostly with HOAs, over 660 HOAs, and private businesses. But we also just recently began working with police departments directly. So we work with, this number is a little bit outdated. We actually work with over 300 police departments now and 660 private entities. What we're talking about today is doing a demo of some of the cameras that we have in the city. Our focus is to have wide-scale deployments. So we're talking about 6 cameras in Somerton. Our cameras are unique in the fact that they can actually identify the rear vehicles, take AI measurements, and give police a really complete picture of what vehicle is going through when they're looking for suspects, as well as we focus on having public and private partnerships. So being able to provide the cameras to private businesses who voluntarily give the same information to police to be able to catch people that have done bad things more quickly. Here's an example of the type of information the scanner gets. Scans the rear of the vehicle, as well as gets the plate and the state. Our focus is on ethics. We're actually part of Axon's ethics board, or we're involved with Axon's ethics board. The images automatically delete on a rolling basis, and we only focus on the vehicle. We're not focusing on people. The data belongs at Somerton, and there's checks and balances at the police department where only certain users can access certain information, as well as there has to be a reason to access information or a hot tag alert. So the FBI has a database called the NCIC, CJIS compliant data, that we have access to. We provide that to the police department so we know if a stolen vehicle is coming through the town, or if there's someone who's wanted on that list, the scanner picks it up, informs law enforcement, and they're able to pick up that person before they have the opportunity to do something illegal. So a couple objectives in Somerton, focusing on stolen vehicles, warrants, wanted folks. We actually had, we've had stories coming in all the time, but we had one particular story it reminded me of was essentially in Texas, there's Memorial Village, there's a city where they put our cameras in place, and they have the same type of strategy. Let's focus on stolen vehicles and crime that's happening. And they were able to catch people in stolen vehicles before they were doing crimes. Specifically, there was some folks that had brought in a stolen vehicle. The police caught it. They were able to pull that person over. And then inside of the stolen vehicle, they actually found masks and machetes and other things. So the idea being that we can actually help prevent crime before it happens. So here's what the cameras look like. They're infrastructure free. They're sustainable. So they work on a solar panel. They can use existing infrastructure, or they can go on a pole. But essentially, it's a camera with a solar panel, so they're completely infrastructure free. And here's the proposed coverage. So it's not coming up super great, but if you look here in the center, that's actually 95. So there's 6 cameras. There's 2 under here on the left side, and they're designed to catch major ingress and egress sections, creating virtual gates throughout the city. So being able to know when somebody comes into the city or exits the city who's wanted, has those types of vehicles, as well as to assist the police department in investigations. So if there were to be a crime in the city, they could couple this along with that information. So last year there was a case where there was a homicide. They used surveillance footage to be able to catch the person relatively quickly. Had we had the system in place, though, we would have caught the van that was actually leaving the area with the suspects. We would have had a tag, and we would have been able to follow up on that lead much more quickly. Beyond that, we also are working with San Luis on a handful of cameras as well. Part of what we do is we actually have cities share some of the information with each other, so the police department to police department, so that you can have more coverage. So if someone does something in San Luis and comes to Somerton or vice versa, we can apprehend those folks. Any questions?
Questions?
I have a question just as far as camera placement. Only show Highway have I know that this is the street to right away, anything Somerton Avenue, because, you know it, and some of us have been victims of vehicle theft. There's other ways, like through Somerton Avenue, that people can avoid, 95 or Main Street.
Certainly. So from demo purposes, we put virtual gates on each end of the city, these two cameras and these two cameras. Then you have these cameras focusing on getting avoidance traffic that can go up or down. With the 6 cameras that we're essentially demoing, those are catching as much as we can strategically. If it makes sense in the future, we could talk about additional cameras and being able to cover more completely. But this will give you a really good amount of data for what's happening in the city, as well as when there are vehicle thefts. A lot of times people will take stolen vehicles, take them to steal vehicles. If they came in behind the casino or on any of the main streets, they'd be picked up before they ever got there. And then leaving, you'd also have it. We actually had a lady in Georgia when COVID first hit. We got about 250 grand out of her bank account. And she went to a convenience store after that because she thought the world was going to end, essentially. Her vehicle was stolen. We were able to trace that back because of the following vehicle, the tailing vehicle, to the bank, or actually after the bank, we were able to get a tag off that and then have a lead to follow up on.
Great. It only captures, the cameras only captures vehicles, not human beings, right?
Yes, sir.
Even the vehicle that's inside the vehicle?
It's not intended to capture people inside of a vehicle. There's no way to sort for people inside a vehicle. There's no facial anything. If they're in a frame, it's by chance and it's not highlighted. It's really focusing on the rear of the vehicle to do what we call a vehicle fingerprint. So we're trying to ID that specific vehicle to the tag for that purpose, not trying to focus anything within people.
The location of the cameras were there, they identified with our police department's help, or was that?
Yes, sir. We worked with Lieutenant Garza and Chief Juarez as well.
To Vice Mayor's point, I would think when cars are stolen, you're taking to Mexico, and Somerton Avenue is probably the primary spot where you would go instead of being using Highway 95. So that's why I'm surprised that South Somerton Avenue wasn't identified. We have 2 on Avenue D and 1 moving tunnel. To me, it would be redundant as far as you want to capture a population or radius, and having 2 on Highway 95 really doesn't.
Hello?
Not the expert.
We could.
By thinking how, majority of cars will be taken down to Mexico, Somerton Avenue will probably be
That's the plan. This is the proposal right now. It's still malleable at this point. So I think the idea today is being able to put some cameras in different locations. We can adjust the locations as the PD needs and be able to put them in different locations. So Somerton Avenue is an area of concern, and certainly we could take some from one area and move them to another. Potentially add cameras if I can get the authority in my company to do that. We can talk about both of those options.
Yeah, and as I read it here, it's just going to be demos, right? For how long? How are we going to have the demos?
Yeah, the demos today are for 60 days from the time the cameras go live.
And just a question, can you remind council, are you approved through a state contract or a vendor split through the state or anything like that?
We don't have a state contract yet. We have a customer in the state so far. We're brand new to Arizona. We have many private customers, but from a state agency standpoint, we have 1 customer.
Has there been other entities here that have already hired your services or gone through that procurement process?
Yes, one so far.
Which one is that?
La Paz County is on board.
Mayor, I have
have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay. In just to touch bases with what Mr. Lozano is saying, have they gone through an RFP process with any government entity here in the state of Arizona?
We're currently in one RFP process with Paradise Valley, but that's the only RFP that we've done. We came to Arizona in late March, so we're relatively new to Arizona. But our coverage in other states with other agencies in California, with Georgia and many other states, we're pretty wide and willing to work with you on individual state mandates.
But here in Arizona, were you awarded a contract through an RFP process?
We haven't been awarded a contract in Arizona through an RFP contract.
Okay, because I believe in order for us to do direct selection, it would have to be through a piggybacking an RFP where you've been awarded this particular service.
And Mayor Council, I think certainly for this stage, when it's a free demo, I think it just benefits the city to see how the program works, and if there's interest, if the council's still interested in this type of program, then certainly we can go into some sort of process in order to select a program, something like this for the city.
My only concern with doing a free demo is that you're giving them the right to establish this service here. And of course, if we end up doing an RFP, they're automatically given the advantage because they already have the equipment installed and services available. So it's not really fair and competitive for other organizations or companies that might be doing the same thing.
At the end of the demo, is there any charge to the city for taking out if we decide not to go with you guys to take out the system and everything?
No, sir, no charge.
Karina?
How far along are you with the process?
So we've submitted it. We submitted that in April. It is something where they've told us that they will have a vendor shortlist here shortly. They already have a vendor that is working with them that does many of their cameras. And quite frankly, the alternatives are less powerful and typically more expensive. So we threw in for that, and we'll see how it goes here. Hopefully by the end of June.
You done with the presentation?
Oh, yes, sir, I'm done. Sorry, I was just waiting for questions.
Any other questions?
All right, thanks for your time, everybody.
I have a question for the chief.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so how did this come aboard? Were you approached by this, or was it something that came about from the police department? What value do you see in it? Is it something that you recommend us moving forward?
You reached out to us, Craig, right? I think that's what happened.
I originally
reached out to my email. And because of the cameras that we've been using, Mayor, for a lot of the solved crimes that we've had, we thought this would be a perfect tool for us to continue to use. The other thing is this will double up our manpower, so extra eyes for the very few officers that we have. That would be very beneficial for the entire city.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
You mentioned that you have them already, or are you doing a demo with them too?
Oh,
Has that started yet?
We're scouting camera locations tomorrow and putting flags in to do potential utility marking. So we're getting close.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody.
Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion? To approve safe demonstration installation of cameras throughout the city by Flock Safety?
Mayor, again, I stand by my comment that I think by proceeding with this, we're going to be giving somebody an unfair advantage. And the proper steps should have probably been to get other vendors into the conversation before we proceed with any of this. I mean, I think it's if Chief Juarez feels strongly about it and she thinks that we need it, by all means, let's look into it. But as far as installing and bringing in already a company without really asking any other organization, see if they're willing to test theirs or anything like that, I think it's unfair for them. And so my vote on this will be not to proceed until such steps have been taken.
Next, the fact that this is just a demo. Yeah, I think that we could just go ahead. I mean, I would like to approve it, even though because it's just a demo. And when the time comes to be able to make a decision, either keeping or not keeping them, then we can probably vote on. If we want to continue moving forward with it. But as of now, I think it's. I mean, we'll see if it works, and if it does, then like I say, we can probably, when the time comes, we can probably talk about it more if we want to. But the fact that they're just doing it as a demo because of the installation, I don't think that doesn't put us in a spot to where we must or we will go with this company or.
No, but
that's pretty much my.
But I disagree with that statement because it is giving them somewhat of an unfair advantage because they're not going to have, and they might not quote us the cost of installing these cameras because they already have done it. So again, you're not allowing other companies the ability to say, hey, yeah, we'll do it or we won't. I understand that there's no cost, but you're eliminating these other individuals, or not eliminating, you're not giving them the opportunity to do the same by not reaching out to them and asking them.
Mayor, I have a question. I was going to say, what has been our practice in the past? When we find ourselves in a situation like this, on my take, I want to just make sure that we, I see Councilman Villalpando's point of view, that it can be kind of be an unfair advantage, but how have we addressed something like this in the past, just to make sure that we're consistent?
And this is probably a product of how council has felt in the past, that we're pushed into making a decision when it can be discussed and so it's happened before on certain items that we've accepted, and then we feel compelled to approve. But I think if we go in being very clear that we're going for an RFP but I do understand that it does. If you look at it, they're going to have an advantage. Is that wrong? Maybe not, but
it depends on how the RFP is structured. If the RFP requires them to have certain items, then yes.
But yeah. but what Councilman Villalpando, and I don't want to speak for you, but that it will create, because whoever's in the program, they're going to be familiar with this company. Is that correct? But then again,
Well, it gives them an unfair advantage overall, because I tell you what, these other companies, they're probably going to want to charge an installation fee, and these guys have already installed that, so they're probably not going to charge the installation fee. So that's half of the battle right there. So again, I think it's an unfair advantage that none of these other companies had even the opportunity to discuss that with our chief. And you're exactly right. In the past, there's been other companies that have presented other products, and we're essentially obligated to keep going with them, just because the cost of somebody else coming in will be greater on an RFP.
I understand, Councilmember Villapando's point, but like the finance director said, if we, in the RFP, if we're very careful to ask each provider to include, all the costs, even though if they've already installed, they'll have to do that, if it won't be considered. And to, I guess, if we all read the weekly report, the chief has been mentioning in her report that they're looking into cameras because the need is there. So, I think, if we do have questions like that on they are reporting the needs and I could foresee this coming up because the chief has been mentioning in her report that, she's looking into this
yeah, but at no time did she single one out.
No, I understand that, but like I said, I think the process can be
and I think one thing with this is, it's included in the report, and I haven't told the city manager, but when they want council to consider something, make it a special email, because it's included in the report. Many times you read it, many times you don't. It's an effective way to at least cover your bases as a department head that you're informing, but if you want council's attention, you've got to really send it to them. But also, that's why I asked the chief, because I feel that it needs to come from the chief when presenting something like this. They recommend it because, council will hear when we have a vendor, they're the vendor, they're going to tell us everything that's great about the product, but I want department heads to come and present the needs and yeah, we can discuss it. So there's going to be a process, more due diligence when we come up with this, but, I do see the need for this and I'm good as long as we are, that doesn't happen again, that we get enough information before pointing it out instead of, but it's a demo. So, but I do understand what Councilman Villalpando is, that it is going to create an advantage for them. Is it wrong?
But so any company can come and do a token, right? To come and talk to the chief and say, we'll do something for you. At the end, if you don't like your product, we're gonna go. Like, if you buy something, you don't like it, they can go. I know it's, are we treating just because they're being more aggressive than other companies, anybody can come and say, we want to do this for you guys, and install cameras or whatever. We can have another company, they want to come in and put it somewhere else in the city. But it's free. I think he also understands that at the end, if you don't like the product or the chief says, this is not, and it's not. And, once we put on this from the RFP, what we want and be specific in all the things, then everybody's going to have a fair chance.
Is he being aggressive, as a company is, but it's something that, he's showing us what his product can do. Any other company can come and do too. It's similar to when we did the spray. We weren't had to do anything. They approached us. We thought it was a good idea. But I mean, as long as he knows that, not just because he's putting those cameras as a model or whatever you want to call it, that means he's going to get the RFP. Whether we're clear or not, then I don't see a. But I mean, again, it's just an opinion. I don't know. So for a motion. I'll make a motion to approve this.
So I have one more question, Mayor, before we. Hello?
Okay.
So I was just going to say, so let's just say, I mean, fast forwarding, so there would be no legal liabilities on our end if we allow, them to install the cameras, and then an RFP comes up, and hypothetically speaking, they get awarded. There wouldn't be any legal liabilities on our end. Just want to make sure on that end.
That's correct, Councilman Castillo. So long as we follow our procurement code and the competitive bid process, that we should be in the clear.
Okay.
Naturally, my suggestion would be to do the demo and have the chief come back with the full report about its benefits or things that they didn't like, and then have the council vote on a formal RFP if that's they're still interested.
And but if we want to make it even, we can have the company remove everything from the polls, and then we can do the RFP. Just to be, so we can be.
Thank you, Mayor.
There's a motion by Councilman. Second by Councilman Gonzalez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Sorry, Mayor, I was saying nay on that one.
Nay on that one.
Okay. Huh?
Nay,
I
Galindo.
was saying nay on that one, but I had my microphone
Nay.
on.
Okay. Motion carried. That's good. We had discussion on an item. It was great. Item number 5. Discussion and possible action to extend the lease 55.5 acres located near Main Street and Cesar Chavez between the City of Somerton, Nature Fresh Farms, LLC from July 1st, 2020 to January 15th, 2021.
Mayor, I had the CARES matter first.
Okay. So let's take this item first.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. On September 11th, 2017, the City of Somerton entered into a lease agreement with Nature Fresh Farms, LLC, for the purpose of farming 55.5 acres near Main Street and Cesar Chavez Avenue. That's the parcel of land that we have where the new high school, adjacent to the high school parcel. The high school is also renting their parcel for agriculture. So Nature Fresh was farming this land before the city purchased, and once the city became the owners, the city has been leasing the land as additional revenue stream until the high school project breaks ground. Both the Yuma Union High School District land lease and the Somerton land lease ended on June 30th of 2019. Since then, the lease was extended until June 30th of 2020. So we are a couple of days away from the lease amendment to end. As June 2nd, 2020, the high school project is now ready to break ground, and Yuma Union High School District has also proposed an extension of their lease until January 15th of 2021. Therefore, the city also wishes to extend the lease to mirror the high school's plans. The city's share of the lease until January 15, 2020 is an additional $24,750, with an option to extend the lease until March of 2021 if needed. Obviously, Nature Fresh Farms LLC wishes to extend the lease. Mayor and Council, I can't say enough. These are great tenants. They're on time with their rent. We have a good working relationship with them, and they've been very willing to take our land for rent as this high school project gets underway. So what we're asking today is to approve the lease extension requested by Nature Fresh LLC starting July 1st, 2020, and ending on January 15th, 2021 for the amount of $24,750.
My concern, and I just was that we need to finish that lift station, and that project is there. If we do it, now I just asked Sam to expedite that process. We need to get it done. Will this somehow, can we work having an easement to that land or something at least now that we can start working on? If hopefully that listen and we get break ground, with that project as soon as possible. So with this, if we wait till January then to finish the lease, when are we gonna work? Probably next year, not gonna be with that project. So that's my concern with this. I don't want to hear that. We're somehow giving staff an extension, and then when I had those comments, in the work session.
I wish Mr. Palacios was here to answer that. I can't answer that.
This council priority on
how the design, where we stand on the design. He said he's still waiting for another 30 days for comments. And then there's another 60%, but I'm not sure when that design will be finalized and then when we would be ready to break ground.
Yeah, and hopefully with my comments, he listens that we want to get that done as soon as possible because we have the investors waiting for those lands. That's important right there. So with that, in any way, if this delays that project, then.
And I was just going to mention that what's going to happen with civil infrastructure in that land, and you just talked about it. And the vegetation plus us, this part of the sewer is going to get some developers there, like the clinic, etc. So is it going to affect that or?
So what I can tell you is that part of my report, now I give reports. Part of my report, and our consultant is telling us that the high school is starting construction September of 2021. They are in the design phase right now, but they're hoping to start construction September 2021. And so that means that the sooner we get on board with this project, it's better for all the parties involved.
Can we have a clause on the contract, whatever, and if we visit it?
Maybe the best course of action, it is $24,000. It's below the $30,000 limit that the city manager can sign for. If you give me a day or two to contact Mr. Palacios and for him to break down a schedule, and
and we could have an easement through there that there would leave 30 feet for the line to go through. We can harvest it. We can make it work.
So maybe if you can authorize me to put it in my discretion until I clear it off with the public works director and what's in the best interest of the city, and what we can do there.
Any other questions, comments, council? Motion?
Mayor,
Second.
we're not transfer that until Mr. Lozano.
So motion by Vice Mayor Garcia and second by Councilman Roldan. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Item number 4, presentation on the Coronavirus Aid Relief Economic Security Act, City of Somerton Fund allocation and possible uses.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So throughout the evening, we've heard a lot of the Arizona CARES Fund. I believe the presentation is in your packet. I'm wondering if we can get those slides up on the board.
Did you find this in our presentation? Of course.
Hopefully we'll go through the whole completion.
Okay.
Expedite.
All right, we can expedite it. So
Like 30 slides.
All right, no problem. So the federal government, Mayor and Council, the U.S. Department of Treasury appropriated $150 billion to distribute to all states. This was overwhelming and bipartisan on their part. And so Arizona's allocation is $1.8 billion. There were some cities and municipalities here that, I'm sorry, let me go back. It's $2.8 billion for the entire state, but cities like Mesa, Phoenix, Tucson, and Maricopa County and Pima received a direct allocation. So they were funded directly through the federal CARES. They don't have to provide any proof of any type of expenditure. They don't need to provide anything. It just goes to them. And so the remaining balance, which was $1.8 billion, was directed to the governor's office. And there was a formula the governor's office used to distribute it then to local jurisdictions. So in a nutshell, without discussing the formula or without discussing whether or not that was the fairest way of doing it, the city of Somerton was allocated $1.9 million. Finance director has allocated those amounts in our tentative budget. So who's eligible? So any county and incorporated city or town that did not receive the direct allocation is eligible to receive the governor's allocation. And the allowable costs are for public health and safety, regular salary, and employee-related expenses. The neat part about this is that so long as we had expenses associated with public health, public safety, those expenses count. Whether or not our teams are actively doing corona emergencies or not, public safety are deemed to be related to coronavirus just right now, right? I mean, anything that they're doing right now is related to corona, even if we don't quantify it, even if we don't have a log, they're just deemed. So that's the neat part about it. So in our case, in order for us to tap into that 1.9 million, all we would have to do is submit our payroll expenses between March 1st of 2020 and then the projected expenses until the end of the year, which is calendar year, December 31st. So getting together with the finance director and the chief of police, we've determined that here at the city of Somerton, we have enough expenses to be able to avail ourselves of the full $1.9 million. They also, part of the presentation discusses the ways to obtain that funding. We've set some deadlines last week. Finance director will be providing those reports. Andrea Moreno will be working on the the federal grant, and I will be working on putting together the information for the Arizona allocation. So I guess the important part for this council to consider and think about is, what do I do with these funds? Are these, what do we do with these funds? Well, the idea is that these funds free up your general fund. Even if you don't use them, for example, if we submitted the grant submitting public safety expenses, we don't have to put them back in the public safety. The idea is that these funds free up your general fund. This is a way of relief that the federal government has given to the municipalities and the local jurisdictions. Some jurisdictions are supporting small businesses. There are concerns as to whether or not the gift clause comes into effect. Luckily, I don't think we're in that type of situation where we're saying some of those monies can be used to help small businesses, other than you saying something about it going to the loan facade program or whatnot, to supplement those funds. But at the end of the day, it's really up to the city council to think about where those funds can be approved. There's a couple of schools of thought. City council can consider putting this in a bank, in a vault, and simply have it as a rainy day fund. Unfortunately, there's been some history where the state does come in and sweep your money during times of emergency. So even doing that might be a gamble for us, where the state can later change its mind and say, look, the state is in dire need of funding, and if you didn't use it, let's get it back. The council can designate a project or a couple of key projects and save the rest. It's really up to the council. It's meant to free up the general fund and assist the municipalities with some of the expenditures that we've had related to Corona and the crisis here in town. It's also, I think, meant as an economic incentive and has some economic impact. Naturally, if we invested somewhere, the idea is to get our economy back rolling, get contractors to work here in town, get contractors and people to start shopping and eating here in town. And so the idea is that the funds are helping us to revitalize our economy. So that is what the Arizona CARES and our allocation is. The deadline to submit is by the end of July, so July 30th. I believe we set a couple of deadlines here internally. We'll have everything ready by the 1st of July. So we have sufficient time to submit, and if there's some corrections that are needed, they can contact us and we can work on making those corrections. But we're very optimistic that we will get our allocation. Also in your packet towards the end, you saw a list of the allocations by county. I'm not sure if you saw that, but you can see and you can compare yourselves to the other municipalities here in Yuma County. Yuma County will get $7 million. City of San Luis will get
I'm being
$4 million.
tested by council members that audio went out. Can you guys hear us?
Hello?
Council
Yes.
members?
Yes, I hear you.
Yes,
You hear us?
Yes.
yes.
And you'll see that Yuma really got the biggest allocation here in the county. They'll be getting 11.2 million. So final total for Yuma County will be it will be $440 million. So that's a lot of money that's coming into Yuma County to help us revitalize the economy. And we're hoping that today council can identify or prioritize maybe some ideas for the use of these funds. Finance Director Gallegos is also here. She can also give you some feedback in her opinion on how to best use those funds. But some money's coming.
We mentioned public safety. So, besides, is there any guidance how to use it? I mean,
I received an email 2 days ago from the governor's office, essentially stating that there are no restrictions on how we apply these funds, and that it's really meant for relief of our general fund. So where we are very lucky to have Ms. Gallegos that was able to balance our budget, even I think before the CARES money was coming in. For a municipality of ourselves, I think this is really, really good news. That I think we weren't counting on that when the budget was presented, and so now this is something that falls on us.
so Serena, are we going to be able to can we use some of those monies to finish or to work on infrastructure in those 55 acres?
Mayor, council members, I'm really, because I don't know when we're going to receive the money, how much we're going to receive, and really the status of, is there going to be any changes? I'm a little hesitant to let you, or to give you guidance on it, because as of right now, all I know is that we're going to request it, not when we're going to get it or the impact that it's going to have. I'm very skeptical about it. Perhaps when we get additional guidance, I can let you know. I don't know how soon these funds are coming in. I haven't budgeted any more than our contingency to accommodate additional funding. If we receive the funding right away, then we can definitely come back to the table and say, okay, this is how much we received. We received it the first quarter. How would you like to proceed? We can have those discussions. I think right now it's too early to really say, this is how we should be spending it. That comes from just a very conservative view.
How does it work? Because March, so you're gonna get funding for this fiscal year. How does that look on our?
So
where does that go?
Okay, so
how do you reimburse that?
From what we know thus far, we are going to get reimbursement for expenditures from March through June. Okay, we've already expended $1.2 million in payroll for public safety. We would potentially get reimbursed for that. That would go into our cash, or into the general fund cash, or
Are you budgeting that amount this fiscal year?
No, I haven't budgeted $1.2 million. We can budget that amount. I have $2 million in the capital projects fund for any contingent revenues that we may receive. But I haven't budgeted any additional amount for the
contingent revenues. Does that include WIFA? So potentially, if we get reimbursement, there's not going to be a place in this budget year to place it in our budget.
No, that 1.2 million is revenues that we're going to receive that are associated with expenditures from this year. So it's revenue that we would, monies we would receive next year for this year.
How much is that? 2 million, you said?
1.2 million.
And that's the amount that we're thinking we're going to receive.
Yes. And then the additional 700,000 would be in next fiscal year. So we're budgeting those 700,000 in next fiscal year. Essentially,
so that's what I'm trying to understand. If it's for this fiscal year, we want to use 1.9 million. We are going to be able to account for those 1.2 this fiscal year. But can we have a place to make it available for next fiscal year? Somehow in our budget. So if we decide to use it for infrastructure on the 55 acres, that we're not limited to that we have that ability. Of course, if we want to be conservative, we'll put it in a rainy day fund. That would be but then again, we need to be as aggressive and invest in our infrastructure. So that's what, because we pay for payroll, so we have all that. So that money that we get it from the state for the years that it can be used this fiscal year. That it's not somehow lost.
My understanding of the grant process is we will submit one grant, which is our year-to-date expenses, March 1st through, let's say, July 1st, if we submit on July 1st. We also submit the forecast of expenses between July 1st all the way to December. So we submit for the entire 1.9 million. And according to what I'm seeing is that they will reimburse us relatively fast, within days or within the same month. So we would have the money, if what they're saying is true, August or September.
But if it's not budgeted this fiscal year, we cannot use it.
Right, that's correct.
So
if it's not
that's why I want to
budgeted.
ensure that it's budgeted this fiscal year so we can use it. least available, not that we're gonna use it, but
So-
we can have that discussion.
Currently, in this,
Because at the minimum, I would, if we can get the whistle on, or if we're gonna wait 8 months for it, I would like to utilize that. We've been talking about ACs for the gym. Now that we have some money, I would like to get it done. Of course, the skate park and the basketball facility, and it's budgeted, but at least those type of projects, you know.
Not have the funds frozen somewhere and not being able to use it.
Yeah.
so currently there's, there's $2 million in the capital improvement fund, and there's $2 million in expenditures. So I have budgeted $2 million in revenues and $2 million in expenditure in the capital improvement fund as for this current budget, as contingency. If we were to receive that money, then, and we wanted to use it for capital improvements, we would potentially be able to do it next year within that capital improvement fund. Now, if we wanted to move those funds to the general fund, we can do that through the council, coming to council and saying, okay, we'd like to move monies from the capital improvement fund into the general fund to take care of these capital improvements. We could do that. Yes, yeah, exactly. That could be done. I didn't budget any more than the normal $500,000 in contingency in the general fund, because with the deficit that we had and the contingency, it was $890,000. So that's just something to keep in mind. So it would be enough for us to do those projects out of the general fund without a problem. It's just a matter of going back and reviewing, okay, where did we receive the money? Are our sales tax revenues in line? And is that what you want to do?
And I think I'm getting confused, but the only thing I ask is, if we get those funds, I don't want them lost. I want to be able to use it. That later on, it comes, oh, what's a budget? You cannot use it. Right? I want to have the ability to use it. That it's not. So whatever it's, we call it general fund, capital fund, and we have those funds, and then later on we don't find out that we cannot use them because it wasn't budgeted in this fiscal year. That's 1.9 million that we didn't think we had that is available for us to use.
Right.
And the thing is, 1.2 million is money that's already spent. So, right? So we need basically something that's already spent this year.
Right.
So we have 1.2 million on the positive for this upcoming year.
Right.
And I think what the mayor's trying to say, just put them somewhere so we have the flexibility to finish some projects that we cannot do it with general fund because all this, taxes and all that.
Right.
So give that money free up, so if something happens and we want to decide on whatever project, then we can go ahead and do it, right?
Yeah, and like we were discussing, you would like to have it 6 months of, allocate that, but then let's make sure that we have also those funds available.
And see, my concern is so based on our track record with state shared revenues, we're going to experience a $400,000 or $390,000 shortfall on our revenues that we had expected for this year. So we know that we're going to be short this year in our state shared revenues, and we don't know where next year is going to be in state shared revenue. So that's just something to keep in mind, that within the next year or two, there are going to be some revenue shortfalls, and we have to be prepared for that.
But we can't go through
Right.
our whole tenure as council members speaking like that. We did that last year, and if we don't invest, then there's going to be a balance.
Right.
So we cannot say, oh, we're not going to use them because we're waiting on a rainy day fund or whatever. It's just, if we can invest in our infrastructure and we have businesses that are trying to come. So yeah, I understand being conservative, but at the same time, we cannot just go about doing the minimum. There needs to be a balance between also the quality of life for our residents.
And Mayor, I think speaking to Mr. Tapia, our sales tax revenue has really not taken a dip despite the coronavirus. So, I mean, we only have one supermarket, so it's not like people are not going to go buy at the supermarket. We only have one auto repair shop or two, and we only have one of each. So really, in terms of for our city, I don't think we've seen as much of an impact on our sales tax. People are still consuming the same thing from the same vendors.
We can overthink everything and just, we can just, yeah, you got to plan for the future, but we cannot be just hoarding all the money because we need to, that's what it was, to stimulate the economy, to stimulate. So we got to ensure that what the federal government wanted was, no, go ahead, don't disrespect it, still like, keep going.
And like I said, yes, our local sales tax haven't been impacted, but our state shared revenues have been impacted. So, and I'm not referring to our local taxes. Our local taxes have continued to come in as, and they haven't been affected so much. But state shared revenues are, and state shared revenues are 48% of our revenue. So if our state shared revenue this year was impacted by $390,000. Next year, depending on how we recover, that could be more or less. I just want to make sure that we have the proper expectation of continuing operations out of the general fund.
Council members, any other questions, comments?
No, I mean, I just, you know, I just I agree with you. I mean, I think since I came on board, you know, it's almost going to be 2 years. I do feel that it's important that we get moving on those improvement projects. You know, the AC for the gym. I mean, there's really, if I look back for the last year, what really have you know, is there for our community to kind of see, okay, this is what has been done. You know, so, you know, here's this opportunity where, you know, it's money that we're getting, that money that has already been allocated, you know, so I think it's an opportunity for us to really, you know, put something here for our city, you know, and help stimulate also, you know, so I kind of like your idea, Mayor. So, I mean, that's all I have.
Yeah, Pablo, you've been too quiet.
I've been listening to the entire conversation, and you know what? I agree. There is projects that we've put on the back burner. If anything, you know, I would like to set aside a portion of that funding for rainy day. But I agree with you guys. You know, there is projects that need to move forward. We can't sit on the whole entire 1.9 million. One of them is one project that has been pushed back is a community center. You know, that can also serve the dual purpose by putting ACs as if there's ever a crisis or anything that could be used to shelter individuals. I know a few years ago we had a blackout of almost the whole entire state. You know, people were out of power for quite a bit of time. You know, if it happened during the summer, we could always house them there with a power generator, which that was one thing that back when we had the other director, he was looking at, is putting a power generator in there so we could make it an emergency housing base there. So I think there is projects out there that we could proceed with this 1.9, but I wouldn't oppose saving a small portion for a rainy day.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I think we have the ability that the 1.9 million available this fiscal.
So far, we see them later on in the summer, and hoping that the budget that will be passed will allow us to tap into that in the event that we need to go and break ground for a lift station.
So there is the ability within this budget to accommodate any expenditures related to those funds. If that's your concern, Mayor, you don't have to be concerned about that because I have budgeted accordingly in contingency for those projects. So not out of the general fund, out of the capital improvement fund, but there are funds within this budget to allocate should you want to spend any portion of that once we receive those funds.
Item number 6, discussion and possible action to approve the service agreement to install National Fire Operations Reporting System.
Mayor, Council, this is an item by Chief Down. Chief, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm on the screen now. This service agreement, Mayor and Council, is going to be paid for by the Arizona Municipal Risk Retention Pool. And what they're paying for is basically a tracking system. What happened is there's a new agency called the International Public Safety Data Institute. They got a big, gigantic grant from FEMA, and they created something called the National Fire Operations Reporting System. The reason they did this is there's never been a way to track accurately the amount and the quality of incidents where firefighters are exposed to different things. Now, I'll give you a quick example because it's not here in your information. In the last 2 weeks, we've been transporting on average from 2 to 4 positive and presumptive positive COVID patients. And 2 of these were full code arrests, which means as they ventilate them and they do all these things to them, they're aerosolizing, they're spraying our guys with a fine mist of body fluids. And of course, they're covered up as best they can and all that. But my point is, this here is set up so they can track this. What happens is when you approve this service agreement, that allows this company to connect to our CAD, our computer-aided dispatching system. And when they page out our firefighters, as they're logged in to shift, they're attached to that CAD. And so every time they go on a call, the National Fire Operations Reporting System sends them a message to their phone saying, okay, what was the call? What did you do? Were you exposed? How were you exposed? Did you receive an injury? And the firefighters are putting this information in. And so what ends up happening is at the end of the day, the end of their career, middle of their career, they can go to the NFORS, which is the National Fire Operations Reporting System, and it'll tell them all of the different times they had contact with people that potentially contaminated them. And it's not here in your list either, but so you have an idea of the things we're exposed to: hepatitis A, B, C, D, E, AIDS, tuberculosis, C. diff. Of course, we're in the coronavirus epidemic. I can keep the list going. So our guys, every time they go out, we're responding to sick people. We don't respond to well people. We respond to sick people. And so when they go out there, they're exposing themselves to this, and they're not in a clinical environment. They don't walk. They're not wheeled into the hospital in a gurney, and like for the people in the ER, they're all packaged for them. Our guys are going into an environment where these guys have been contaminating their homes, and they're walking into their homes, a contaminated environment. And they're having to extract them from that contaminated environment. They're putting them in a little 6x10 box that we call an ambulance, and they're being contaminated in there again. And so this is, I don't think it's ever affected me as greatly as it has recently with the COVID-19 pandemic, because it's tragic. When I see my guys pull up the station, they pull out a sprayer and they spray these guys down like if you're in a sci-fi movie. It's the only way to make sure we don't contaminate everybody. So anyway, this, if you approve this service agreement will be no expense to the city. And one of the questions I have to them, because I want to make sure, because right now I want to see what the run for this is going to be, how long it's going to be free. Because I'm always, I'm a lot like Miguel Villalpando, I'm always questioning, which is good. And so I'm asking them, and they haven't answered me yet, how long it's going to be for that. For sure, I know it's a full year that this is free. And if you read the contract, there's no cost for backing out, and we can back out at any time. And so it's a very good thing for our firefighters. I think it's a very good thing for Arizona Municipal Risk, because they can track whether something a firefighter is claiming in the future is valid or isn't valid. Because of course, as we all know, there's always people that always claim injuries or contaminations that they're not provable. They didn't happen, and they take advantage of the system. So this works for both the firefighters and the cities. And that's all that I have. Unless any of you have any questions for me, Mayor and Council.
Any questions? Comments? Maybe just try to get that information from them, huh?
Definitely. And I'll forward it to you.
Is there a motion? So motion by Vice Mayor Garcia, second by all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Appreciate it. And with your permission, I'm going to step away from the meeting. I got food cooking on the stove, so I'm going to head that way. Have a great night.
Item number 7, discussion of possible action to adopt 2021 preliminary.
Good evening. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. The preliminary budget before you is 26 million. I forgot it already. 26,263,500. Per our discussion earlier, you would like to add about $50,000 with to our HERF funds for a potential debt service payment. Within this budget, we have enough in contingency to support any project that you may have for that $1.2 million.
Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion? So moved, Mayor. A motion by Councilman Gonzalez. Second by Councilman Roldan. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, sir.
Good job, sir.
I have a question.
The next one.
Item number 8, presentation on the introduction of the 2020-21 property tax levy as presented in the preliminary 2021.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, again before you regarding the property tax levy. So our current, the information before you, is it available for me to view? Luis?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I want to make sure I explain the property tax levy properly.
Which one should I show?
It's on the PDF or council.
Page 95. The packet. This one?
No, 95.
95.
Okay,
There we go.
perfect. Thank you, sir.
We share it to the other members.
Okay, so our current property tax levy is $678,377. If we would like, thank you. Okay, that is the tax levy for 2019. The proposed tax levy without having a truth in taxation hearing is $684,123. If the maximum levy the maximum amount of the levy we could levy is $712,083. We would have to go through the truth in taxation hearings and advertise those in the paper and let our citizens know that we are levying or we're increasing their tax levy by $6.65 for a home valued at $100,000. So to your ordinary property owner, your resident, it would have, if it was a $100,000 home, a $6.65 effect. Now, it would require us to notify our residents that we intend to increase the tax rate. And the difference between having the minimum and the maximum is about $27,000. So, yes, I would like to know how you would want to proceed. Whether we're going to do the maximum extent allowable by the levy, or we're going to go with the minimum, which is the $684,123. I would like your direction.
I have a question, Mayor.
I do.
Mayor, Council, what you need a balance is really $27,000. To get an additional $27,000, we'll have to go through the public hearings, we'll have to publicize, we'll have to let the taxpayers know, or we forego all those formalities and we just keep the same tax rate as last year, taking into consideration coronavirus, the way some people are, losing their jobs, and it can be seen as maybe nickel and diming your constituents. So that's the decision up to you, and you, those running for office could be seen as, raising taxes. So those are all considerations that are at play. And to gain $27,000, entirely up to you.
I have a question, Mayor.
Yes.
So Ms. Gallegos, just want to make sure. So on a home valued at $100,000, we're looking at an increase of $6.65. Is that per year, per month? Just want to make sure.
Per year.
Per year. Okay. Now, my next question is going to be to you. I mean, what would you recommend? You being our finance director, what would be your recommendation?
More money.
Actually, not in this case. I would recommend we hold the maximum amount without going into truth and taxation. And to me, the reason why I would recommend that is because if we do get the AZ CARES Act, that will be something that would help us with regards to our revenue shortfall. To me, the image of city and council and raising taxes for a $27,000 amount is not that significant, because I don't want to give the impression that we are, like Mr. Lozano said, nickel and diming our taxpayers. At the end of the day, if we don't get the AZ CARES Act, we've already cut our budget significantly. I think we can accommodate $27,000 within our $11 million budget.
Okay. And I think thank you for that recommendation. And I do think I know for me I know you kind of ask right now. Well, I want to know the direction for council wants me to go. I think for me it's valuable to hear your recommendation first, so that I could consider it, and then come with a decision, and instead of just kind of putting it on council to kind of give the direction, because I think you're more informed on the day-to-day operations than we are. So that's just my comment on it, and thank you.
And before the CARES Act, being that we were facing a budget deficit, and I would have probably thought different. It's we've passed it every year except for last year, and if you look at it, the formula is 665, but it's based on growth, and it's really not that. But considering that we got those fundings, and I do agree, but I think when you explain this, it's not as bad as it seems. But there needs to be a way of explaining, and we've had the assessor come before and explaining, does a pretty good job. But for this year, I do agree, but we cannot be going every year without the fear of raising taxes. It's needed because this fund pays for the GATA loan, and we're having to supplement that with our general fund.
That's correct.
So we keep going and going, and when we passed this tax, it was for roads and streets, and if we keep delaying it, then our streets are going to fall again in disrepair. So I think for this year, it's fine, but let's not be scared because of it's the reality, and we need to make payment. And next year we're not going to have those 30,000, and then you're saying that we might be in a shortfall for revenue.
Yes.
I think the same, Mayor. I think if we wouldn't have the CARES Act, probably all of us would be thinking differently. But with this money, I know it's only 27,000, and hopefully by next year, but the economy goes up and everything, everybody's working how it's supposed to be, and not as much unemployment and whatever it is. I think we need to say us, don't be afraid of voting on stuff like the water rates and so forth. But I think for this year, I'm with you. Hold up, this year and next year, take that into consideration.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, discussion of possible action to approve resolution number 2020-014, the resolution of mayor and council of the city of Somerton declaring for the purpose of section 1.150-2 of the federal treasury regulations, official intent to be reimbursed in connection with certain capital expenditure related to water capital improvement projects.
Mayor, council members, I'm back. This is again for the WISPA water loan that we discussed at the special council meeting. This is the resolution that we need in order to be able to draw down from that loan for the project that's currently that's going to start construction here shortly. So in order for us to do that, we have to have this approved resolution from you for the water tanks.
There are already funds that the city has used and expended. Those have to do with the engineering services. So in order for us to reimburse our city coffers from the WIPA loans, we can do so by passing this bill.
Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion? Motion by Vice Mayor Garcia. Second by Councilman Roldan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Summary of current events.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me to present my first summary of current events. As you know, Mayor and Council, coronavirus has been at the forefront of our news here locally. Mayor, you've explained as you did so earlier this evening about the possibility of making face cover-ups mandatory within the city. That's still being looked into. But effective this afternoon, a policy was created and sent over to all of our employees, which makes mandatory face covers for all employees effective today. There's certain parameters. The only exceptions are that if you're at your workstation 6 feet apart from another person, if you're moving around then you do need your face covering. So we have implemented a policy for all employees to start using face coverings. And for that matter, anybody that comes into City Hall, even though we're closed, we would require that they have a mask on as well. And these are just some of the efforts that we're doing here within City Hall and with our employees to keep ourselves and the community safe. There was a governing board meeting for the Somerton High School on June 10th, 2020. They mentioned at this meeting the steps for the design development of the high school. According to our consultant, Jerry Cabrera, construction drawings will be completed by the end of next year. I think it's meant to say by the end of the year, with construction starting in September of 2021. And as a side note, he still recommends that there still be some community engagement to keep supporting the high school so that the project doesn't get delayed any further. So moving forward with the high school. Carmen Juarez from Community Development says that the Max subdivision preliminary plat will be presented to council on July 7th for review and approval after the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval at its regular meeting last night. Also, Census 2020 update. The census leave operation is ongoing in Somerton, where the census employees are leaving packets on front doors without any contact with residents. Packets contain census information and a questionnaire for those residents who have not submitted their questionnaire via online or telephone. As a side note, just a few hours before our meeting, I received an email from Ms. Juarez saying that she is pretty startled that the city of San Luis has jumped us. They were at 10.2% last week, and as of today, they're at 30.4%. Somerton moved from 24% to 24.6%. We moved up a 0.6 percentage point, and they moved up 20 points. We don't know how that was accomplished. We're going to look into that and see what efforts were used to get that drastic of a result. From Chief Juarez, they're continuing to use extreme caution when responding to calls. Their dispatchers have done an extraordinary job of entering all the COVID positives in the CAD system in order to keep police and fire personnel informed and protected. On June 12th, Officer Alejandro Uribe graduated from the Police Academy. On June 15th, Officer Bermudez and 2 cadets began their first day of work at the Somerton Police Department. You've heard a lot from Finance Director Zorina Gallegos, but I do have some notes here. Would you like to say anything on your summary? Basically, prepare all the budget items and so tired. And prepared your whole budget for tonight, Mayor and Council. Fire Chief Paul De Anda, the amount of COVID-19 positive transports to the hospital has now become a daily occurrence for his personnel. Due to multiple exposures, some of his personnel have had to be tested multiple times. Thankfully, all tests to date have been negative. In order to leave the ambulance out of service, after transporting a COVID-19 patient, they've installed an air compressor, a spray gun, and disinfectant at Yuma Regional Medical Center's emergency parking. Their personnel now disinfects one another and the ambulance after each call while still at the hospital, and thus avoid having it remain out of service for 30 to 45 minutes. And they will be testing applicants for the 2 empty safer positions this week, which will keep them in compliance with their FEMA AFG grant. Sam Palacios, Public Works Director, says Buffalo Garden Street reconstruction and water main replacement project. Contractor continues with the water main and services relocation. This task will be done this week, and the plan is to begin with the grading of the road next week in order to prepare the segment for the new asphalt. Water tank rehabilitation project. Notice to proceed was sent to the contractor last week. Contractor started yesterday, and they began with the roof removal. And again, we've just mentioned that some of those costs that were incurred already will be reimbursed with the resolution you passed. It says PCDG grant applications that in conjunction with our consultant Yolanda Galindo, no association with Mr. Galindo, continues working on the grant application. As you may know, the funds available are $500,000. These funds will be used entirely to reconstruct West Fulton Street and Council Avenue with the new asphalt sidewalk ramps, vertical curb and gutter, and a new drainage system. The application is due tomorrow, June 17th. Hector Tapia, Economic Development Director, reports that La Michoacana Plus and the Oriental House Chinese Restaurant, the designers of these two projects are taking too long to complete the construction document. Local professional designers are too busy or are overcommitted. He said he might reach out to architects in Phoenix Metro and create a list for future recommendations. So earlier on, we spoke about that in our department head meeting, and we're having problems with getting local architects and designers working on these local projects. And so those are some of the delays that we're facing in trying to get some of these businesses in a town.
Is there any reason?
Excuse me?
Is there any reason why they're not? Is there like overwhelmed with a lot of work? The economy's booming.
I don't know if it's just due to Corona or people staying at home. I have no clue why they're overwhelmed. I believe he also mentioned that even when the first design was submitted by the Oriental House, that took quite a long time. And I think we only have one architect in town is what he reports. Or in the general area. So that's the challenge here is that the architects are overworked. City property lease, of course, I'm not going to report on that, but essentially the lease is up and we're looking into the renewal, and we'll get back to you on options. So whether that's viable with respect to the project that we want to get done on the west side. Jesus Meza, Parks Director, they're working on the final program and details for the 4th of July celebration to deliver a creative and uplifting tribute to our community. Parks Division is working on preparing a modified maintenance agreement to accommodate for transitioning involving all retention areas. Starting July, Parks will take over maintenance of all the retention areas, as was mentioned earlier today. Recreation is also working alongside the Finance Department to finalize all spring 2020 activities reimbursements by the end of the fiscal year. And Mayor, that concludes the reports from our directors.
Councilman Castillo.
Well, Mayor, I just have kind of like a comment that I wanted to make that I should have added it in earlier, but just regarding that time assessment when I spoke with Mr. Mesa, just something to think about. You know, I know that the time study is being conducted by staff, you know, and it is my feeling that I think in order for it should be kind of conducted by a neutral third party, by someone that's impartial to the area, just so that, you know, I kind of see it that when individuals reporting on their own program, really the validity of that, I want that information to really be reliable, and I think it would be best served if it was done by a third party, you know. That's just my comment on that, especially when decisions are going to be made regarding on that. That's you know, so.
For an agenda item.
Yes, sir. So
that's all I have, Mayor.
Mayor, perhaps we can combine that with the contract labor for the district.
Yeah. Councilman Galindo?
No, nothing right now. Just be safe out there.
Councilman Villapando?
Mayor, yes, I do have something, and it's and this might be for our legal / city manager and maybe finance in regards to taxes that are being charged by local businesses. You know, I went into a Super K liquor and I was doing some quick math right now. They're charging about a 9.46% on a purchase, where Shea Oil, I did the exact same purchase and it was 8.64. So I've been aware that people have made comments that the taxes being charged at Super K liquor are possibly a little bit high. So at this time, I would like to make a formal request that we look into this matter. People should be paying and should be charged the appropriate tax amount, not whatever amount it is. I'm actually looking at my receipt. They did charge a 50-cent fee for a credit card transaction, which is fine, but they also taxed me on that transaction. I know it might be just pennies, but pennies do add up, and I don't think it's right for our community members to be charged taxes incorrectly. So at this time, I would like to make a formal request that they look into this matter.
Yes, Mr. Villalpando, we've looked into several businesses. My take on that has been that might be a deceptive practice. I think everybody understands that prices have gone up. Meat has gone up to $10 a pound. So the reality is they should really adjust the price on their product. Whereas a burrito might cost you $7, you might have to sell it for $10. But what they're doing is they're keeping the same price. I think as a practice to say our prices have not gone up, then they knock off this imaginary tax that they add at the end, which is really what I think is a deceptive practice. But I think I've sent some information over to the chief of police on at least one of the cases, and maybe she'll look into something else.
We should audit, even Circle K, I calculated like it was less than the 10%. So maybe it just needs someone to look over that and audit that. And yeah, I had that experience at one of the markets too, and it was more like 15%. So, and I did send that a receipt, and so start looking at that.
Mayor, council members, I have a standing meeting with the Arizona Department of Revenue with regards to sales taxes and their audit. So I can definitely reach out to them to see what they're currently doing for auditing those our local businesses. And also, what we also experience is a lot of them don't really understand. They should. That's their job. What exactly it is that they should tax. Services obviously are not taxed, but anything that they sell falls into certain categories with regards to the sales tax amount. So I can definitely reach out to them and see where they are on auditing our sales tax locally.
And what's happening is you use your debit card, they won't give you an itemized breakdown of it. They'll give you the final amount, you pay for it, they give you the receipt. But if you ask for the itemized, then you start looking at the sales tax. So many times it's a deception that you use your credit card, you use your debit card, and you get the full amount. But if you ask for the item, that's when you start looking at it.
I will reach out to the Arizona Department of Revenue and see where they're at and return with the report.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Just to thank you and staff efforts for the push through to the state. We're a very small city, and the numbers are creeping up with the COVID. And I understand it's not, the 535 encompasses a little bit out of the city too, but it's scary, and we have a lot of people with underlying conditions, a lot of elderly, and if we continue, I think if we continue to push for everybody to be careful and be cognizant that we have vulnerable people within the city, we can make a difference. So I just wanted to thank you and staff for the effort that you're putting in getting the state to talk about it at least, but I guess we'll have to take action if they don't. But thank you.
Councilman Gonzalez.
I just would like to ask the city administrator to follow up on the cleaning of the Somerton Avenue, where we have the solar panels. All that trash, tires and everything is along the right of Somerton Avenue. And I know that, when he was here, approached Sam about it, and he talked about it, and I think that Sam gave him time frame, but nothing has been done. So. Thank you.
Today was Serena's show, so I want to thank you for all your efforts. This is your first year, I think, starting the budget, closing the budget, and starting the meeting. Thank you for all that. I know all the prior administrators for the trust what they think, but for all the efforts in getting all things closed and also open the new one for all that. And also, Mayor, thank you for taking care of your community and sending that letter, getting together with other cities. So I think, Vice Mayor said, we're seeing a spike in the numbers, and we need to do something about it. Hopefully, you sending that letter to them, we'll take a look at it and give us the opportunity to do something. So I think, if you're in a good position, you're supposed to thank you.
Okay, I want to welcome you, city managers. Thank you for stepping up. Also, Serena, thank you, and I also want to thank all the department heads, for all your hard work too. And, hopefully, we start promoting more the 4th of July and being asked what we're going to do. I think we know, so we can start at least letting people know. We're not going to do a virtual one, but we're going to, at least where we have something planned, so we need to accelerate our promotion on it so people know. And like I mentioned at the start, we sent a letter to the governor, and I'm in conversations with other mayors. If there's no action from the state, then what are as a city. So that's all. Here, we're probably, hopefully we hear from the governor and they allow us, but it's concerning the Somerton. We are the hottest in the state. We're almost the same as Yuma, and we are 4 times less population than they are. And like I said, I'm sure we know people that have died and people that are sick, and still all those we have the store, we have the post office, but also all the parties on Carne Asadas we have on Friday. That also has a lot to do with what we do, and as a city we can do so much, but it ultimately comes to the people and educating them. And so that's the hard part, that we still see a lot of people congregating, more than 10 people. See a lot of people without masks, around the store, around the post office, even council members. So it starts with us too. It starts with us. We need to set the example of not gonna, as a community, where it's no end in sight. Our hospital is, daily seeing people sick, and it's concerning. But we're working, and hopefully there's been some. I guess initially when this thing started, we had great communication around the state, but when this started being politicized, I think we kind of deviated from that effort, and we're left to kind of do our own thing. So we'll see. We'll see the next week. But hopefully we start seeing those numbers. And that's it. Yeah. Thanks, Serena. No more.
No. Thank you so much. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate your allowing us to have all these different work sessions for the budget. I very much appreciate all of it. So thank you all for the late nights and for the feedback and for everything. Thank you very much.
Galindo has been smiling now the end of the season.
Oh, no. Oh, nothing.
Executive session items, it's this point up to you if we want to entertain those or if we reschedule those or.
I talked to several council members, and we got the list of city managers yesterday. So this is being a very important decision we're gonna make. It's not enough time to go over and finalize the candidates. So either we can go into executive session and talk about what we're looking at the new city manager, so we're on the same page, or we can table it and have it discussion for later. But I just asked that we get the list. Did you send the resumes with the list?
Yes, there's a list with resumes.
That tells you they didn't even have time to open it. The other council members didn't have time to look at it, and another couldn't open it. So
I didn't even have access to my email, so my preference is to table it and then maybe set up a special meeting earlier so that way we could all focus on it.
Yeah, I second that too. I mean, I was able to just glance at the I know there were 19 applicants, that were sent to us, but I just kind of glanced at them. I mean, I want to spend my time on and really dive into those resumes and letters. So I agree with you, Mayor and Councilman Villalpando.
Me too.
I did my most. I think that all fairness also was look into those applications and resumes that I think that's it's part of a job, and I'm sorry to say that, but those of us that have the time to look at it, and I stayed up till about 1 o'clock this morning looking at this resume because I got in kind of late as well. But again, that's just me, and I
Well, I think it, and you're right. It is part of our job. But when we get when we get the emails, a day before, and those of us that do work, that do have an 8 to 5 job, it's really hard to make that time. Me personally, I got off work and I came straight here, and I'm pretty sure that's the case for other council members and mayor. So for me, that's my take on it. I mean, I know it's my job, but I do need to sleep. To be to be ready for work. So, you know, I think if we table it, that'd be my recommendation.
And also, I think it's, you know, staff job to give us the information adequate time, especially with some legislation like this. Just going to 19 applicants in one day when we have 8 to 5 jobs, and, you know, preparing for a council meeting, looking at budget numbers, plus looking at applications. I think it's unreasonable to expect council to look at the applications thoroughly. I guess looking for a motion, table it, or do we go into executive session?
I'd like to make a motion, Mayor. That would give us more time to the big decision that we have to make, and I think we don't have to rush this. You know, I know it's something important, so give us the opportunity to at least, you know, look at every 19 applications, you know, carefully, because that's a big decision that we have to make, and that's an impact to our city. So,
the motion by Councilmember Juan.
I second it.
Second by Councilmember Castillo. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 9:19, meeting's adjourned.
Second.